And hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Crystal Crusaders side stories. Yesterday, we met with the first person who just happened to be available, which was James. And today, I am with Thor. He's going to be playing Alquil once again as we discover what he has been up to during the break in time here between the end of the first season of Crystal Crusaders and the beginning of the upcoming new one. Um, awesome! Everything is breaking already. Love to see it. All right, here we go.
All right. Yes, it is I, the
Hello,
true
Thor.
protagonist of the story.
Yes, the protagonist of the story. Uh huh.
Yes, the true protagonist of the story, who was supposed to actually be the first one because we were supposed to do this on Tuesday, but apparently something came up in Brad's schedule, or Brad forgot something about his schedule.
Yes,
On
I
Tuesday.
am an idiot and forgot that I rate on Tuesdays.
Right, exactly.
Whoops.
Which is why this had to be pushed up
Yeah,
to
so we pushed
Thursday,
this
because I
back
assumed he'd
to
already agreed with James to do it on Wednesday.
yeah. So yes, we are here today. I'm ready to get into things. Probably be here an hour or so, give or take. And we'll just see. We'll see where things lead off. So, um, as we begin here, we see a markedly different scene than we saw with Alexei, rather than a view of a large sort of bustling city amidst the like sweltering summer heat of the far south. We see the kind of whites and browns of the somewhat warmer than typical during this these summer months. The sort of landscape, this flat plain of the Icewind Dale, far to the north, past the spine of the world. Still relatively cold, comparably, but these are the summer months, so the snow is sort of like retreated somewhat. So you've got a lot of kind of like muddy ground, some like small like grasses and bushes that spring up during these warmer months. But there's still that sort of like chill in the area every so often. And we see a city, although a much smaller one. Sort of walled in this big like circular wall. The city of Bringshander, nowhere near as sort of bustling and busy as the city of Waterdeep, but a busy city nonetheless for this place in the world. And as we kind of like are looking over here, we can see that to the east of the city, there is a trail that sort of goes off towards the direction of some of the other towns here in the Ten Towns. But there is a large kind of like grove of coniferous trees that are growing outside of the city. And as we kind of like enter in here, we move a bit more towards that grove of trees, and we see ourselves overlooking what appears to be like a large area that has been fenced in with like a decorative kind of like iron fence almost. It looks pretty like old and rusted in places. And we see there are a number of what look like above ground like tombstones basically here. The earth being far too like frozen and hard most of the time to bury entire bodies in the earth. They have these sort of like above ground kind of like stone sarcophagi almost in a way. Some of them fancy and ornate, others just very plain and simple. And we see sort of like as we're coming into the scene, we see a figure standing there alone amidst this graveyard in front of kind of like a modest looking tomb sort of set up with this little like headstone. There's like a small statue of what looks like an angel with their wings folded over a humanoid figure at the top. And the figure standing here, they have this sort of blue like fur trimmed cloak. They have a like longsword at their side. They're not wearing a helmet of any sort, despite the cold. They're shaved bald head, dark skin,
Oh,
and their breath is sort of like visible on the air as there's this chill in the early morning. Um, and we can see as we get a little bit closer, pulling in over the shoulder of this figure, that on the tombstone we can see engraved sort of this colorful and kind epithet for an individual known as Speaker Duvessa Shane is carved on the headstone. And yeah, we see standing there a familiar face, Sheriff Markham Southwell, standing before the grave of Duvessa Shane, who unfortunately perished in the frost giant attack many months ago. And as we are here, kind of like looking down at this headstone, there's a like crunching sound in the light sort of snow behind us, and turning around, we see another figure approaching, and this one more immediately recognizable. The sort of custom-made plate mail armor with the sort of like moon symbol on the chest, bearing the shield with the holy symbol of Gweren Rindstrom on it, and carrying a number of different weapons. We see Alquil Redmoon approaching from behind. And Alquil, as you are approaching this scene, you see the sheriff, head sort of bowed low, just sort of staring down at this tombstone. You have been back in Bryn Shander for a number of days now. It took you about a little bit under a month to return here after leaving the city of Waterdeep. It's a pretty long, arduous journey that you undertook pretty much by yourself. But you have now sort
right.
of successfully made it back, and you basically have gone to find him here, like returning to just connect again with everybody, having returned here. So you're basically now freshly back. It's about a month after the end of chapter 1 here, and yeah, you have now returned, and you are kind of approaching Sheriff Markham here, who seems to be sort of grieving.
Right. Oh, music shot came to. I put on
Hmm.
the Icewind Dale soundtrack, and
Oh.
suddenly I think battle music. I think battle music just
suddenly
suddenly started.
suddenly battle music. It's
Just like draw a
all
sword,
your
Sheriff
fault,
Markham.
Alquil.
Yes. But no. So I will, seeing as he's standing there, obviously in mourning. I hmm, I'll if he hasn't like moved, I'll give him some moment, just like standing there, like giving him some his space. Um, but if he doesn't seem to have like noticed my presence from just like the crunching of the footsteps or whatever, I think eventually I'd probably just go like,
Yeah, so he sort of kind of like picks his head up, turning around and sees you. And you can see he's got this sort of kind of like this melancholic expression on his face almost. It's obvious like he's been kind of like deep in thought, considering something or the other. And as he like turns and sees you, um, he kind of like his eyes kind of like go wide at first, a little bit like surprised, right, to see you again. And
mm,
he you could see that his he's still wearing like kind of like armor, right? He still has this sort of like
yeah,
sheriff's outfit. He's there's a new kind of like little badge that's been like pinned in place of his like normal like sheriff's badge. There's like a new little like badge there, the sort of badge of the office of the speaker of Bryn Shander, him having been elected after the unfortunate passing of Duvessa Shane. And he turns and he says, well, I'll be Alcool Redmoon in the flesh. Was wondering if we'd ever see you again. And he kind of like puts out a hand to like basically like grab you. Uh,
yes, I would step forward and give like stretch out my hand. Oh, he's not in the fucking handouts anymore. I can't. I was
no.
like, where's his picture?
Here we can. I can get
Yeah.
it to you again.
New roll 20
Yeah,
instance.
new roll 20.
Yeah, because
Uh,
like I would also just like put my hand out and Grease is like, It's been a long time, Markham. And I look over at like his look down his emblem or like the medallions. It's like, and it's no longer sheriff, is it?
And he says, no, it seems as I've had a whole new heap of responsibilities put on my shoulder. A heavy weight to carry, that's for sure.
I understand. It's probably not easy, especially with the times being what they are. He says. Um, I've there we are. Role playing information.
Yeah, it's old news.
Old news.
Old news.
Yes, yes. Oh no, Dwesser's no Dwesser. Uh, I have no just a small. It's just like I've just now or just returned to the Dales. It says we I've been down to the city of Waterdeep. I've laid down our request for aid to the leaders of the open lord of Waterdeep. I believe she's the leader, but I must admit I'm not entirely certain how their government works. She did say that she was going to need bring it before a council of other lords or something. I say. Uh, all in all, I'm hopeful, but sort of shrug. I can't say whether or not we are going to get any help from the south.
Um, yeah, so he sort of like nods and says, whether or not we receive any aid from them down south, I appreciate the efforts you've gone to nonetheless. And he says, and you can see he's kind of like reaching into like the sort of inner pocket of his like overcoat that he kind of has over his armor, and he like pulls out this sort of like narrow, thin case. Flipping it open, you can see there are a number of what appear to be sort of cigars like stored within it, and he sort of it doesn't look as though it's been used very much. It's still sort of like full, and there's no like ash collected in it or anything, but he sort of like looks it over. It looks pretty like old, and he kind of like takes one out, like holds it over to you, and he says, want one?
I can't say I've smoked a lot, but sure, I say.
And he just sort of like nods, and he pull one out, closes it, pulls out like a little like matchbook, basically, striking it before like lighting his own, and then like holding it over to you. And he says,
Yep.
I can't say that I'm much for this sort of thing anymore either, although it does help calm the nerves these days. He says, she didn't like it all that much when I was smoking in front of her back in the day, but I think she'd understand now.
I just nod as I take a puff myself. Probably been a while since Alquill smoked
Mm-hmm.
anything. He probably smoke. I see Alquill more as like a pipe smoker than a
Yeah.
cigar smoker. Uh, but considering how long we've been on the road and such, and I don't think he's like I don't know how readily available tobacco would even be in the Icewind Dales. It's probably not a good thing to get addicted to. Feel the withdrawals all the fucking time.
Probably not. Um, yeah. So yeah, he sort of takes a long drag of the cigar before exhaling cloud of smoke into the air, and he says, "So what brings you back to these parts this time, eh?"
Says, well, I mean, the Dales are my home. He says, so I would like to obviously check on that everything is still standing. I says, um, we, my compadres and I, have been chasing rumors of the giants and such. I did tell you before we leave that the can't remember actually. I can't remember out of character if I told him about Sirak and that Sirak was possibly the reason why the Frost Giants came. I think I did. I think Alquill like it's definitely like something he would have told Markham since he was the guy in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So it says like we escorted Sirak down to Waterdeep to the Roaring Horns, friends of his mother and possibly his and his father. I say. So he is safely within the city, although we were chased by frost giants along the way. Heard much of their incursions. Luskan down south was attacked by a frost giant warship, though that warship did not last long under the firepower of the mages of the Arcane Brotherhoods.
He says, so them bastards are even attacking places as far south as Luskin, eh? He says, guess I shouldn't be surprised. It's good to hear that Sirik has made it to safety at least. Said it's unfortunate. The poor boy's blood got him dragged into all this. He says, he says, things have been quiet here since you left. Not gonna lie. Thankful for that, at the very least.
It's good.
Not exactly the born leader type, but I've been doing my best to fill a rather large pair of shoes. And he sort of says, there's been some progress, at least on the front of pulling things together up here, creating more of a community, I could say. And he says, your old pals, the Ragged Men. And he says, seems we've finally reached something of an agreement on the future of this dale.
Just and I'll nod and it's just like, that's good. That's good to hear. It says, at least something positive came out of all this then.
He sort of nods and says, still don't know what happened to those Bear Tribe members and the fallout of that attack by the Ice Witch all them years ago, but the rest of the tribes seemed to band it together and, well, formed a council of their own, it would seem.
At the mention of the Bear Tribe, like Alquill would probably get like a look down in the snow as he takes like a long puff of the cigar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about Bear Tribe, Dragon. I says, I can tell you what happened to them. Says, do you remember Akar Castle, the Lich from 9 years back? That told you about.
I think I vaguely recall the name from that nasty business with the black ice.
Indeed, we never did see what happened. We never found out where him and zombie dwarfs ended up going to. They went up north and just kept going. Well, it appears that Akar Castle managed to survive, and actually, out of character. Hang on, remind me. Out of character. Did fucking what's his name? I have the notes on this character sheets. Bio, yes. Did Rengar say that he worked for Akar Castle, or did he just make a vague mention of a master and just like working with the giants?
Yeah, I don't think he mentioned the name in specifically. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think that he mentioned specifically. But like obviously, like he is working with the giants. Valish Gant was working with the giants, and I mean you can kind of put like 2 and 2 together, but I don't think he ever specifically said it himself.
Yeah, okay. It's just like, well, he I do know that Akar Castle had like these Fomorians at least under his spell, because that's who he dropped us off with. He's I believe he might be possibly behind, or at least trying to make a profit, benefiting out of the chaos that the giants are causing. Because it's not just the frost giants here up north; it's all the giants around the entire continent. hill giants, fire giants digging up pits all around the Sword Coast, trying to gather something. I think adamantine. What's this? Uh, Cloud giants seeking ancient magics, trying to that they believe will give them masterhood over the giant races. I think. And then there was a whole incident of hill giants trying to attacking the golden fields, the big, large crop harvesting town, I suppose is the best way to put it, for Waterdeep. Yes. Akar Kessel, I don't know if he was behind any of those specifically, but I do know that he has some other giants under his spell. Uh, these strange, uh, deformed ones. And he did mention when we encountered him, when we were captured, when we traveled through Luskan, we ended up getting captured by the ship Retnor, the pirates of ship Retnor, and they brought us to before Akar Kessel, and Akar Kessel taunted us that he was apparently going to reshape the world or some nonsense, and was going to keep us alive long enough to see it. And it had he vaguely hinted at it having something to do with the giants. Well, bringing it back to the bear tribe, it turns out the bear tribe are also allied to the giants. At least I met Rengar Bearheart far, far down south, working together with a group of stone giants. I'm not entirely sure what they were working for, but Rengar made a vague mention of a coming disaster that choices now would lay between servitude or annihilation, which I believe he was referring to Akar Kessel, or perhaps what Akar Kessel was trying to bring. Yes.
So he sort of like nods through your story here, taking another like heavy drag on the cigar, and he says, "Well, I'll be. Seems like you've been up to quite a bit since you left here. I'll be honest, I don't rightly know if I can make sense of all this whole end of the world nonsense that's going on. It seems, but certainly come a long way from busting up rackets here in Bryn Shander, that's for sure. Um, this is strange, though. You would have think we'd have noticed such a large group of people making their leave down south. I says, but I heard nary a word about them since they fled to the glaciers up north.
Yeah, it is strange. Though I do have learned that there exists teleportation magics that can transfer people long distances in but a single moment. We actually made use of them ourselves for a little bit. Yes. It's it's a wide world out there. A lot of things that I didn't know existed.
And he just sort of like nods and says, "Guess that's so." And he says, "A wide and dangerous world. It sounds like." He says, "Well, I'm glad we got somebody like you out there fixing these problems. What need fixing?" He says, "I don't think us small folk can really handle something like that. He says, I got my hands full enough as it is up here, dealing with the
Uh,
problems of our little town."
I understand, though. I'll be honest. I'm not sure that I do much have been able to do much about it myself. Just every time we go up against any of the giants, it's barely like with just within the hair of my breath that I'm able to survive. Says. And even then, we've lost some good people along the way. So, says. Honestly, I have a lot of stories I could tell you right now. Um, Mainly, but the big one, I suppose, would be about the hill giant attack on Golden Fields. Uh, we got hired by some of them. One of them wizards down south in Waterdeep, Blackstaff Tower, to go investigate the hill giants and try and find their stronghold. Which we did. We found it, but we ended up in a situation where we needed to fight a lot of the giants within the stronghold, and honestly, we would not have been able to make it if not for this other frost giant, I say, called Harshnag. Yes, there's it. Harshnag the Grim. Would you believe it? He's actually one of the good ones, I guess. He's apparently a bona fide like Knight of Waterdeep or something.
Sort of like
It
this
says.
incredulous look on his face, and he says, "Well, I'll be damned." He says, "And here I thought I had heard everything. A friendly frost giant? Now that'd be the day."
Yeah. If not for his strength aiding us in that battle, we would never have been able to take down Chief Gur and her hill giants, thus securing that Golden Fields would no longer be attacked, and hope and those the crops will not be destroyed or eaten by giants trying to get fat. So like shake my head. Apparently, the hill giants believe that size, and by size I mean size, equals strength. So they eat themselves to get stronger, or at least that's what they believe.
And you see his sort of like stern kind of like expression kind of like breaks for a moment as he kind of like chuckles to himself, and he's like, "Well, I'll be now that ain't the craziest thing I ever heard." And he says, "Well, sounds to me like you've been on a real bona fide adventure down there in the south." He says, "I can see it in your eyes. You've been through a lot and learned a lot along the way." He says, he kind of like pats you on the arm, and it's like maybe even put on a little bit of muscle.
Yeah, I'm not sure if my strength score has actually increased.
I don't think so, but like figuratively speaking,
Yeah. I was like, yeah, it's been quite the ride. It says, actually, there is one. Actually, if he pats me on the shoulder, well, that's probably my armored shoulder. It's just like so he probably wouldn't feel the fact that I'm a lot colder.
Mm.
Um, he'd be like, yeah, there's been a lot of discoveries. Uh, apparently, I could tell you so much, but says I look around. It's like you probably don't want to stand around in the snow, in the cold, have this long tail, and you might be busy. I don't know how much time you have for any long debriefings of or regaling of what has occurred and whatnot. Says,
Yeah, he sort of like lets out like this heavy sigh, and he says, if this had been a few months ago, I would have been happy to take up a seat in the tavern and let you regale me with your tales for hours on end over a drink, but unfortunately, I've got a lot of responsibilities to attend to now." He says, "It was all I could do to break away from it for a time to come see her again." He says, "It's good to see you back, Quill." He says, "And should you ever need a place to truly call home again, well, the offer always stands. We could use more men like you here in Bryn Shander looking over the place. Um, but I understand if you've got some other things to take care of in the meantime." And as he's talking at this point, you hear from behind you, very sort of soft footsteps like crunching in snow as like another figure appears to kind of like be approaching from behind. As you both like turn and look, you see a like a shorter kind of like slender looking figure in like rough leathers lined with sort of like fur, kind of like winter gear almost, with a like large kind of like longbow unstrung currently across their back. They have like a hood up over obscuring their face, kind of like this green fabric, and you can see a like a pin on their lapel, this sort of like stag's head emblem of some sort. And as they approach, you don't immediately recognize them. You hear this sort of voice coming from underneath the cowl, and they say, Alquil, is that you? It has been some time since we have last met. And they sort of like pull this cowl back, and you see this figure, sort of like obviously like a woman, sort of very kind of like slender, refined features to their face, although their skin is sort of somewhat like wrinkled. They have like vaguely pointed ears, obviously some sort of like elephant lineage there, and their hair is sort of like gray and tied back into a ponytail. And you recognize like immediately who this is as soon as the cowl comes down, as you,
Lindarin.
yes, your trainer, as it were. Um,
Yes. And it's just so taken a bit by surprise. I look as like Lindarin. It's just like, is that you, or am I going crazy from the snow?
Not this time, Alquil. Indeed, it is I. You are a difficult man to find sometimes.
It's just, well, there's always out on the travels, though usually here in the Dales. Says I will admit that during this past few months I've probably been a lot more difficult than normal. Says, um, but what brings you? Why you look? Have you been looking for me? Yes.
Um, yeah, so yeah, she sort of like looks to you, and at this point, Sheriff Markham, or Speaker Markham, turns to
Speaking
you
about him.
now, and he just sort of says, "Well, I see you've got some catching up to do here. I've got some business to take care of back in town, so I think I'll excuse myself here for a bit and allow you to carry on your business."
Ah,
Sort of like,
yes, of course, Markham. Like I'll nod. Thank you for the cigar. I say, taking another puff, probably.
yeah.
Don't know how long we've been standing here. How long it will take.
I
The
mean, you
cigars
stay
usually
here
stand
for a
last.
bit. They last like a little while.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So he sort of like nods and kind of waves to this newcomer whom he doesn't know, but
Mm.
obviously you know. So he's like a friend of Alquil's. So yeah, he sort
Yep.
of nods and waves and begins like heading off, his heavy boots like crunching in the snow, before Handorine turns back to you and says, well, it has been some many moons since last we met, Alquil. And he says, when I heard you had returned to this, to Bryn Shander, I was in the area. I thought I would just stop by and see how you're doing. He says,
I see. Well, um, what's this? Should we perhaps head to a tavern or something, a place where you could be warm, or should we just remain talking in the snow?
she sort of like chuckles a bit and says, well, I'm no stranger to long excursions in the snowy wastes, but a tavern would suit our purposes well, I think.
All right, then. Let us go. Shander. There is that tavern that belongs to Flamebeard.
Mm-hmm. Um,
Powers I have forever brought in my lay of hands.
of course, yes. Yeah, so you make your way into Bryn Shander, into Firebeard's tavern there, which I don't actually have the name of anymore because I think I deleted all the handouts.
Yeah,
Oh well.
I don't know.
Um,
Fuck.
Not really that
I don't
important.
know the dwarf was named Flamebeard, some
Yeah,
like
yeah,
something
yeah,
Flamebeard.
yeah. Ogden Flamebeard, I think was his name, something along
Yeah.
those lines. Um, yeah. So you make your way there. It's still like middle of the day ish, so it's not like super packed. You manage to find like a table to yourself. Order a couple of drinks. Put a couple of copper down basically, and yeah, as you're sort of drinking there, you see.
Kelvin's Comfort.
Yes, yes, Kelvin's Comfort. That's the one.
That's the
That's the
one.
one.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and so as you sort of like get your drinks and you're sat down, you see Lindarin sort of says, "You must tell me what you've been up to these last few years."
That was the name of the dwarf.
Yep.
Yes. So which I might actually have done that. I think about it. Like no, I looked up like the Forgotten Realms. It was like, um, yes. I was just like, well, uh, mostly I've been traveling, as adventuring, as Markham calls it. As after the incident with the frost giants, I don't know if you heard about it, but there was an attack on Bryn Shander. How long ago? A month? 2 months? Where's the
It's been about 3 months at this point because it was about like two
2 months?
months
Yeah.
of travel and like all the
Then
adventures and all
yeah.
that kind
So
of stuff, and then it's been like another month traveling back. So it's been about
yeah,
3 months.
the attack on Bryn Shander about 3 months ago. Well, as it turned out, the cause was because they were looking for a specific individual. However, the magics they were using to track that individual had led them to one of his relatives living here in Bridgechander. And so, to help him and also seek out aid for the city, me and some compatriots escorted him down south to Waterdeep to some friends of his family. I say. On the way, we ended up getting uh, involved in quite a few, let's call them side ventures. Says mostly dealing with the giants, but also dealing with some other things. Says there seems to so been mostly getting more and more wrapped up in this whole giant mess that's going on all around the Sword Coast. Been fight went to we got in Luskan we got kidnapped by a group of pirates that tried to sell us off to a lich. We managed to escape just barely. Gauntlegrim apparently got their fire stolen. Still, that's yeah. I'm sort of like still not entirely sure how that works. Says. Then in Neverwinter, we got hired by some wizards to infiltrate a cloud giant castle and steal back some relic that they needed. But then in Waterdeep, once we finally made it down to Waterdeep proper, we got hired by some wizards there as well. So we were asked to look into the attack on Golden Fields. Apparently, a group of hill giants had laid siege to that town, and we investigated that. Defended the city helped defend the city from another hill giant attack. Discovered that the one leading the hill giants were a wizard that called. Oh fuck! I should have mentioned that to Markham as well. Valish Cat. I completely forgot to mention Valish Cat to Markham. He doesn't even know. It's just like a wizard called Valish Gant, who, if you might have heard 9 years ago, he tried to take over Bryn Shander. Seems he's been going moving up in the world now. Took over a tribe of hill giants, who has been leading to cause mayhem. And once we found this chasing after the hill giants, we found their stronghold, and thanks to the help of a frost giant, friendly as he were, we were able to take down the fortress. Yes. I believe that's the short summary of all that happens before I decided to travel north.
She sort of like smiles and nods as you're kind of like regaling this story. And she says, says, keep up at this pace, and you'll have enough adventures to fill an anthology of memoirs. She says, you remind me a lot of your father back in our younger days. Says, in that regard, you're very similar. Says, I was somewhat aware of the ongoing problem elsewhere. My associates have told me about the attacks on golden fields far to the south and the likes. I've been doing my part here to keep an eye on things after I returned, but I am not the youth I was in my glory days. So I've been keeping to the shadows and watching from a distance, keeping them apprised. He says, you've accomplished a lot in such a short time.
Well, I didn't do it alone, says,
Nobody
and
ever does.
and well, what we've accomplished sometimes feels like we're mostly just stumbling around in the dark, somehow managing to not uh, cause an avalanche, tripping over buckets.
She sort of like laughs a bit, and she says, oftentimes the best heroes are the ones that are stumbling blindly in the dark, unaware of what they're doing or where they're going." And he says, "Some call it destiny. Others merely luck, perhaps, being in the right place at the right time."
Well, the luck is the favor of the gods. Well, at least the favor of Timora. It says. He says something like, so, in a way, one could call luck destiny, could one not?
Sort of like nods. Says, "I suppose you could, although I prefer to believe that we can make our own luck, and it isn't prescribed to us."
That's an understandable hope, wish, thought. It says. I just count my blessings where I can. It says. In whatever form they might come. Yes. You knew my parents, or at least my father, for a while, I say. Did perhaps you might know something about? Recently, have started having. Well, some weird things have started happening. It says. I've been told by some experts that this has to do with my bloodline. I'm something they call a sorcerer. As I like if we're at the tavern and perhaps I have like a glass of water or like something. It's like I'll like lift the glass and I'll with my hand just use the shape water like the ability to like freeze it basically and then unfreeze it.
Yeah, so she sort of
So
like watches this, kind of like narrowing her eyes before like cracking a smile, and she says, "I see." Says, "Seems you've got more than just your mother's eyes, after all." He says, "I recognize this magic within you. Nothing of your father's, that's for certain. Your mother, on the other hand, she knew many similar tricks. Many people feared her, called her a witch. But your father knew better. She was just gifted. Seems that gift now lives in you."
I nod. I see. I says. I don't remember her very well, I say. Though with these changes, there's not just magic, but my body has grown cold, and actually I've started to have a lack of feet. Let's see, I just have to check. This is like my body has grown cold, and my eyes have adapted to the dark. Says rather well. I can now see a lot more than I used to.
She sort of
It's been a strange adjustment.
this is interesting. This is she like shrugs. It says I'm no expert on magic or bloodlines or anything of that sort, but it sounds like it will be relatively useful to you. I confess I didn't know your mother very much either before she unfortunately passed away, but she was a good woman once you got to know her.
It's good to hear. It says, as you said, a lot of people did fear her, so I've heard it told. Um, it's good to know that at least not everyone did. Uh, so it's like things. It's like so. You've been keeping an eye out here. It says, do you have any news about the giants' movements here in the Dales? Any idea what where the frost giants are coming from, or where they might be?
She sort of like sighs rather heavily and says, unfortunately, they've been fairly good about covering their tracks. We can really only follow them so far as the coast before they reach the endless glaciers, and it becomes difficult to follow them. The icebergs and vast sea, as it were. It says, it would seem as though there are a few groups. Many of them seem to come from the western seas, but there are others that descend from the mountains, the spine of the world. He says, and I hear yet more talk of them far to the east, terrorizing some of the settlements beyond the other side of the mountain range. He says, I fear that their failure here in Bryn Shander to secure what it was they were looking for has led them to search for other means of bringing about their end goals.
Hmm.
It
That
says,
is good.
there is
Says,
a place far, far to the east, um, a little village where once upon a time giants and men lived in harmony with each other. Now most of the people who live there are something of a mix between the two. And he says, little place known as Hartvale. They have been dealing with a lot of the same troubles of frost giant incursions there recently. He says, I was actually thinking of heading that way myself. See what I can do to help.
those sounds concerning. It says, I must confess I've been well for the moment. I don't have much plan to do. It says, I was hoping to help deal more with the giant problem, but Harshnag, the aforementioned frost giant I worked together with to defeat Gur, apparently said that he might have a solution, or at least a hint of a solution, but he wouldn't know for sure before another few months, and that he would seek me out once he'd found his answer. Yes. Until then, I'm not entirely certain what to do with myself. Says, in truth, I'm not entirely. I've started. Must admit that I've started to doubt how effective I can be against giants when overall. Says,
Sort of
uh,
like nods. Says, I can understand that sentiment, especially given when you see the creatures up close and just the gap in physicality and ability alone, it can seem insurmountable. But nobody tackles these sorts of things alone. But if you're worried, perhaps there is always time to for self-improvement. This, or perhaps you could seek counsel on the matter.
Yes, says. Though I'm not entirely certain to whom I should ask. Says who I could ask about this.
She sort of like smiles, like looking over at you and kind of like gazing to your shield that you've got like propped over to the side, and says, "There's always one who is always listening."
Of course. I nod as I look at the shield and the symbol on it. I says, perhaps it has been a while since I've asked him for guidance. Um, I sort of like look at when were you planning to leave for Heartwhale? So that was what you said, Heartwhale, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Says, well, it is to be quite the lengthy journey. I was not planning to leave soon, although if I do not make haste, the pathways will be closed off to me in the depths of autumn and winter's fury, as it were. So, probably within the next few weeks.
I nod. I see. I says, well, if nothing else comes up, perhaps I'll join you.
She sort of nods and says, I would be welcome for the company, though I fear that my own journey will lack the excitement you're perhaps used to. I can't exactly keep up with a young gun like yourself anymore.
That is fine. I says, excitement isn't all that which is it's cracked up to be. I smile. I says, would actually do well if we just have a calm journey for once. Would you believe that the journey back was actually a lot simpler than the journey south?
Um, she sort of nods and says, I can believe it. He says, things have been strange recently. The upheaval has caused roads that are normally plagued with monsters and bandits to have been all but abandoned in the wake of giant attacks. So, in a way, I suppose they have somehow made it safer, and yet I can't help but feel that all of this, should it come to a head, will not end well for civilization as a whole.
I nod. No, I do not believe it will. He says, remind me, Brad, were we told that the ordning has been shattered? Or is that something we still don't know?
I believe that it was mentioned.
Okay.
I
So I'm
think
not sure if that was.
Harshnag said something of the
Yeah,
likes.
I think like Harshnag, like that's
I
like.
don't think he gave you like an in-depth explanation, but was basically
Yeah.
like, like our society has been kind of like shattered
Yeah.
by our god, and kind of
Yeah.
everything's in upheaval.
Yeah. And it says, according to Harshnag, it says their the giant's god, Anam the Allfather, shattered their ordning, their way of life somehow, and that's the cause of this chaos. All the giants are now. I don't know why they are all become so active, upheaved as it were, but they're all seeming to be vying to become the strongest in some matter.
Sort of like thinks for a moment before just sort of like shrugging. Says, I will not pretend that I can understand the workings of the mind of giants. I'm sure they have their reasons for what they're doing.
I fear that for as long as this, until some new way of life is created for them, they're just going to start. This rampant chaos is going to start. It's going to continue. So who knows how long that period will last for the giants reach a equilibrium of coolness.
Sort of nods and says, in the meantime, we simply must remain vigilant and do what we can to abate their activities.
Yes, indeed, and you know, drink more from my ale or whatever I'm drinking.
Yeah, so she sort of says, well, it's getting late and I grow tired in my old age. Says, I must be heading off to bed now, but should you wish to
I
join me in the prevailing weeks, you're free to come find me. Like I said, I will probably be heading off soon. But if
Yes,
not, remember that our brothers and sisters are everywhere out there, and should you seek or need aid in your quest, you simply need only turn to the Enclave, and they will help you in what way they can.
I nod. Yes, the Enclave has been helpful to me in the past, and even in my recent travels, they have been good. As not sure if he was a member or not, but for a while I did travel with this druid. Who's is the few planes because the few planes has been cleaned up. So I have this embarrassing moment. Like I have all these notes of characters, but I haven't noted down the names of the
Noted down.
NPCs. So this is like because I know Morton had like a half orc who died, but I don't remember the name of. I remember Malfarian because like his name or no, Malfarian was the samurai.
Yeah, he
Then he
was.
had Nitharian or something that was like the ranger. And then I almost called Mike's character Rory Flintspark, but it's that is like it's a Rory's a gnome first of all. Mike's a halfling, and his halfling was named.
It was Nibelung.
Nibelung. Yes, that was it. Nibelung. I sure
Rory Flintspark.
for a while I traveled with this halfling druid named Nibelung. He perished in a battle against the giants, but the Emerald Enclave made sure to give him the proper rites for a funeral.
And she says, I am sorry to hear about your loss. Says, we have all lost far too many traveling companions in our time. Says, I fear there may perhaps yet be more to come. But do not dwell on it.
Yeah.
Do what you can and live without regrets. They only weigh you down. Yeah, she sort of like stands up. Obviously, sort of like nodding to you. And says, "I must be off for the night, but I wish you luck, Alquil, in whatever it is you choose to do."
Yes. Good night to you, Lindarin.
So she excuses herself, sort of leaving you alone there at the table, nursing what remains of your drink.
Yeah. I suppose is it so late that the gates have been closed to the city, or can I still make it kind of like out?
There's probably still like an hour or two before like nightfall and the gates close.
Because I probably then like having like thinking a little bit about her words, I'll finish my drink and quickly head out to well, a little bit of nature, just far enough that I can probably like say a few prayers to Guerin, and still be able to make it back to the city before it closes like completely. I'm not gonna stay out in the wilderness in British, like in Icewind Dale, when the option to staying in British Andrew is there. So like probably go out there and find like a secluded spot in the nature and sort of sit down, maybe like start drawing the like holy symbol in the snow. Um, as like thinking, kneeling there, and I know that you're always listening, says, though you don't always speak back, says, but I could really use your guidance right now. Uh, says honestly, I'm not unsure what to do. He says, how to deal with this giant menace, this threat. He says, there. He says, if there's anything at all that you could perhaps help me with, guide me towards, that could help me, answers, skills, someone who could aid us, but is yet unaware of the danger. Anything, I says, I would greatly appreciate any sort of well sign that you might be able to give me.
Yeah, so you kneel down for a moment, sort of like eyes closed in prayer, sort of just letting yourself kind of like feel the elements of nature around you. You can feel the sort of like wind whipping like past your face, like cold and bitter, far to the north. You can almost like hear the sounds of like the earth around you with the snow, kind of like distant creatures like their small footsteps like crunching in the snow, the wildlife kind of like all around you. um, and there's a moment of silence before you sort of like finish your prayer, let out like a heavy sigh, and like you know having received like no response, you begin to like stand up, and as you look ahead of you, you see like far off in the distance, maybe like a dozen yards or so away, at the edge of wherever you're sort of positioned yourself, there's a creature standing there. This large, white furred stag, sort of there, standing, staring directly at you. As you sort of like look up, like locking eyes with this creature, um, your vision kind of begins to like blur and go dark almost. Um, you kind of like grab your head. It almost feels like you've got this pounding headache, and then everything sort of like goes dark, and all you hear is this sound of like haggard breathing, sort of like heavy sort of grunting noise of extraneous activity. The sounds of snow like being crushed underfoot by heavy booted footsteps. The occasional like tap of like something like wood on stone every like few steps, and you almost like feel yourself moving. You feel as though you're walking, and then you see briefly this sort of very like vignetted, fuzzy vision of like this massive like blizzard almost, and you see like walking amidst this blizzard with like a large walking stick, this like cloaked figure, obviously dressed like in like super heavy like winter clothing to protect against the elements. They appear to be like relatively sort of like short, and they appear to be like sort of like walking up this like steep incline. You see that they have what appears to be sort of like a lumberjack style axe like on their back, and they're like dragging with ropes. They're like dragging like what looks to be like an entire like tree behind them as they climb up this slope. And you see this for a moment, and then suddenly you see a different scene entirely. There's this sort of like large forest almost around you, and you hear like the sounds of like snapping and breaking logs and twigs, as you see like trees like falling all around you, and this figure emerging out from the brush, this massive giant, this frost giant, kind of like emerging from these snow-covered trees, and you see there's like a herd of what appear to be like reindeer or something of the likes. Again, everything's like very dark and blurry. That begins to like scatter as this giant is coming, and you see it like goes to like reach down to like grab one of them before there's like a flash of like red and blood splattering everywhere, and again you kind of like see over this like short like heavily like cloaked figure kind of standing there. They look as though they've just taken a swing, their axe covered in blood, and there's like they let out like this deep like war cry as they like charge at the giant, and then everything just sort of like ends. And as you sort of like recover back to your senses, sort of breathing heavily, staring directly at this stag, you see the stag all of a sudden its head like turns as if alerted by something and like darts off out of sight. And for a moment you're just sort of standing there, just like breathing heavily, trying to take in what it is you just heard, before you hear the sounds of like footsteps behind you again, this sort of like crunching noise in the snow, and from behind you you hear a voice, and it says, "Elquil, is that you? It has been some time since we have last met." And as you turn to look at who it is that is approaching you, I think that is where we are going to end things off for this first time.
All right. When you were like describing that scene, all I could think was like, "Lou, go to the Dagobah." It was like in the beginning when he was like the footstep. But then there was like the whole giant scene. Like, oh shit, oh, fuck. That's all right. That voice. I'm assuming that's one of like that's the oh, what's his face? Let's check notes. Stalking's from the wait, legacy. Hengar, maybe. At
Maybe,
least.
maybe not.
Maybe. Who knows?
We'll have to find out next week.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so that will conclude this sort of first short solo session here of the side story for Outquill Red Moon, and then we'll be back next week to pick things off and see what happens next, and
Yes.
where the winds take Outquill on his adventure here alone in the north.
In the north, alone. Yes. No dwarven sidekick. He's
Unfortunately not.
that neither Sirak or Briork is here. I don't wonder what Briork's up to.
Who knows? We could be up to anything.
Yeah, could be up to anything. Might even have left the game. Who knows?
I've decided to just fuck off. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like nobody ever acknowledges my contributions to this. Nobody even remembers my name.
I remember, but I'm also the one who like he gives me extra initiative. You know, that's good. I need that.